All right. We are live. We are live with Stanley Roberts of Mr. Badly TV, the one and only Mr. Badly TV, Stanley Roberts. It's been on a couple of times. Stanley, just to reintroduce you to people, I'm going to try to do my fastest, 2-sentence bio for you. Longtime San Francisco Bay Area reporter, photographer, knows all about crime on the streets and whatnot because you used to do people behaving badly, where you would find, and it was kind of like dumb criminals and a lot of stuff like that, and you were very popular. And then you end up leaving. You have all this on your YouTube channel. You keep going, doing what you had been doing, and the TV station, you say, essentially copyright strikes everything, and you lose it all, everything that you built up. Is that
everything I built up in the past was copyright stricken, even though there was no contract or nothing like that. It was a spiteful thing. But that's the past. Let's talk about the future.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, that's Stanley's background. Stanley, you were just at the Dreamforce AI conference. Well, this is your website in case people want to follow you, MrBadly.com. But you're on Twitter and you're on YouTube, and you're still keeping it real online. So everybody can follow you there.
Thank you.
Keep trying. You were at the Dreamforce conference in San Francisco, so this is an AI conference, and I'm seeing a lot of these kinds of tweets. Lipstick on a pig. Gavin Newsom will clean up the streets for his buddy or for visibility, but he won't do it for the everyday citizen or the businesses which sustain the daily existence of San Fran. Basically saying that certain areas were cleaned up miraculously for this big conference, and yet, day-to-day life in San Francisco, apparently there just aren't resources to do the same. So I guess I'll just open it up first. What's the truth? Was it really cleaned up? I mean, is that a correct characterization?
So let me go back for a minute. So the reason why I even showed up at Dreamforce, I would probably have never gone in the first place. I mean, I've never been to one. I've always been on the outside looking in, showing the bad behavior around there and people, running red lights, running over people, blah, 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 garbage dumped. And I had got a message from the big boss from Salesforce, Mark Benioff, saying, "Hey, would you want to come? You have a nonprofit now. Come see what we have to offer for nonprofits." And they do have a lot of stuff, data, whatever. So I show up as a visitor and not a journalist this time. So I get my credentials, which if you lose them, it's $100. If you lose your credentials, $150 to replace. It's all made up to be, this great thing. And it's pretty cool, actually. But you can see that there was a presence around the area. So when I drove in, traffic was terrible. A lot of motorcycle cops with their lights on. And I'm thinking, oh, they must be an escort or something. But no, they're just showing, how CHP shows something called Shows the Doors, where they park on the side of the road so you can see the logo to slow people down without pulling people over. Well, let's just say San Francisco was showing the doors.
Okay.
That makes sense? So,
yeah.
So cops everywhere, SWAT team guys, bombed by dog. It was really, and here's something that really crazy was they had these metal detectors that weren't metal detectors. They were some kind of a high-tech AI thing that if you had an unusual square or unusual pattern on your body, it would put a red triangle there or a red square.
That's freaky.
And then they would pull you aside and check you. And I made it through every single day with no triangle until the last day. And all of a sudden, they pop up and they want to look in your bag to see if you're carrying anything. And according to one guy I talked to, it's very accurate. They've done it in Wyoming, where they had an event where everybody has guns and they were able to find weapons on people. So let's just say the security level was on. If we were doing DEF CON, it would be what, DEF CON 1 or DEF CON 5, whichever was the highest level. That makes sense.
So yeah, what do you think about? I guess, I mean, on one level, I wish there was a little bit of a happy medium, because that seems a little freaky to have some kind of dictate. It seems like a dict.
Uh-oh. And if you're here and you're watching her freeze, it's because her internet is crappy. So I am here.
Good job,
we're
Stanley.
back. I'm AI, and I'm here to tell you that she'll be back shortly.
You're the AI, Allison. I'm not sure the AI did a great job on making us look alike, but Okay, so I was asking you, is there like is there a happy medium? Because it just goes from like total chaos to like an authoritarian dictatorial security state in San Francisco. I mean, is there a middle ground for you
Well,
guys?
I wouldn't call it dictatorial. I mean, in this world we live in now with shootings and whatnot, I'm happy to see they're taking that level of security to make sure everyone's safe. There was no accidental homeless person wandering through the event like you would see anyplace else. There was nobody smoking fentanyl inside of the event that you might see around San Francisco. There was nobody sleeping in there. They cleaned it all out. They
But
really
Stanley, what we're saying? I mean, and just asking this as a question, not like necessarily opinion here, but is what we're saying here that's the only way to clean things up is to have that? I mean, that seems
no.
insane. I wouldn't want to have to walk through that stuff on a daily basis to have a city that I could walk around without having my stuff stolen, like in San Francisco. Like, is that the only option?
I think that now I've attended on the outside looking in um, a few of the Dreamforce events, and I will say that there has always been a level of security around them. But for some reason, this one and the level was a little bit higher. But then again, there was three governors from different states. There was a mayor. There were all the bigwigs that showed up. So they kind of have to put on a pretty face. You don't if you're really picky relatives showing up, you clean up the house before they get there, so they don't have nothing to complain about, right or wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me wonders, like,
I'm
did
not.
it just get so bad in San Francisco that they went like full stupid on the cleanup? You know what I mean? So it's
Well,
just like,
they used half of their motorcycle. The traffic safety motorcycle police were out there. Now,
uh,
keep in mind, San Francisco is short 500 plus officers. So to
wow.
take that many traffic
So,
guys, which are the motor cops and the
mhm.
cars, to put them in one area, I'm curious to see what happens if we do a sunshine report to see how the calls were handled when you have that many units in one area at one time. I mean, that had to be the safest area in San Francisco for 3 days, maybe
Yeah.
four.
Well, that's not hard to do in San Francisco to find to make a safe area if you really want if you really wanted to, because
Well,
it's so bad there in some places.
you're right. And okay, so let's go back to 2018.
Well, hang on, Stanley. Before we go back to 2018, I want to talk about my new sponsor that we got to get your wife on board with because she's a nutritionist. And she's got to give me her read on this. So I'm going to send the link so you can tell me. But anyway, everybody, Stanley's going to go back to 2018, and I'm going to ask him too about if he thinks that San Francisco, if what the characterization is true, or if we're just fed a line about San Francisco, maybe it's not as bad as everybody says. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, but first, thank you again for people who have already gone to fieldofgreens.com, put in your promo code Allison. You get 15% off your first order. This is organic superfood powder. Here's what makes it different. All of the fruits and vegetables in this, besides the fact that they're organic, they use the whole fruit. So it's not like just a piece of ginger or a piece of a raspberry or a piece of spinach or whatever. They use like the entire plant and the entire fruit. And they are all geared specifically towards organ function. It was put together by a doctor for like what targets what organ. And it's great if you're on the go or in like a non-growing season. It's summer in Florida. We're not growing anything right now, or you're going into winter somewhere. You want to just take this, which is flash frozen, beat up, pulverized into a little powder, put it in your water, shake it up, and you make juice. And you take, 2 scoops of this a day, and you've had your fruits and vegetables for the day. Again, you get 15% off your first order using promo code Allison, fieldofgreens.com. And if you're looking for something to mix it with, you can always just throw it in your AllisonWinePromo.com. I'm not sure how that's going to taste. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know if it defeats the purpose to drink it with alcohol. I'm not asking any questions. I'm not here to put a box around you and see if your shape is all out of order like San Francisco and their AI. What, Stanley?
Is that the whole fruit, nothing but the fruit?
Whole fruit, nothing but the fruit. Yeah, exactly. What was
So
that?
look
Fruit
at
by the foot? Wasn't that fruit by the foot? What was that?
the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yeah, but wasn't there actually a commercial? Is it Whole Fruit?
Oh, I don't know.
I feel like
You
there
know, I
was.
don't watch
Okay, yes,
TV. It's too depressing. Oh wait,
that's true. Well, once you make TV for a living, you don't watch TV anymore. Okay, so
exactly.
AllisonWinePromo.com, 50% off the best Argentine Malbecs out there from very remote regions and small family operations. We've got one from almost 9,000 feet in the trio, one from the oldest vineyard in Argentina, over 200 years old, and one from the third highest vineyard in the world. They are great wines. They're my favorite wines. They were my favorite wines before they were a sponsor, and it's a great way to support my work. They've been with me from the beginning. So
When
they're
you
just a great
say
company.
highest vineyards, does it mean high as in mentally or high as
Elevation.
in elevation?
I think probably both. I'm
They
hoping that they're cognizant when they're making the wine. You
getting
know, they're not.
blunted before they make
They
the
might
wine.
be. I mean, well, it's just such good wine. I mean, it probably only takes a little bit plus low oxygen at high altitude. You know, I mean, it just doesn't take a lot to get probably drunk there. So anyway,
All right.
AllisonWinePromo.com. All right, let's go back to it, Stanley. So take us back to 2018.
Let's go back to 2018. 2018 was when I left to go to Arizona. I had a job with CBS in Arizona. And San Francisco was it was San Francisco. You knew that there were some problems. You knew there were things going on. But then I left to go to Arizona. And when I came back in 2020, the first thing someone said to me was, "Why'd you leave?" Because you left, it messed up everything else. And I'm like, how did that have to do with me? I mean, and I've heard this over and over again. So now fast forward now back to now. And yes, on my YouTube channel, I did a series called Gotham by the Bay. And it talks about how shows how things have changed. I mean, I'm literally in San Francisco, and there are people passed out behind the wheels of their cars, which was something I never saw before I left. So that was new, and I understand that COVID changed a lot of things, but it also shouldn't have made a bunch of people passed out in their cars on the streets from using certain drugs, where they actually drive around with fentanyl bottles to see if they're awake to bring them back to life. I mean, that's
you mean Narcan?
Narcan, thank you. I'm thinking fentanyl.
And Stanley,
fentanyl.
To that point, DMSR over on Locals says he has been in San Fran too long. You say hi, and he is not sure what you mean. Meaning when we're talking about high altitude Malbecs, and you're like, you mean high or high? Anyway, yeah. And don't forget, you can support my work and be on my editorial board at AllisonMorrow.locals.com. $5 a month, go one-on-one with the most censored people on the internet, and Stanley's going to continue. Go ahead, Stanley.
So we both quit TV news. So just for the record, so it was weird to walk around. But the strangest thing, I think, wasn't the fact that I walked around after being gone for almost 4 years and doing the series, was that it's like I never left, because everybody was like, at the same time, they were like, "Oh my God, Stanley Roberts, there he is. There's that guy." And of course, they didn't know where. They were like 7 on your side, which is channel 7, a completely opposite channel. Stanley on your side, I don't know where that came from. All that branding, and they still don't remember the name. So I don't really go off the branding thing anymore. But so now we're doing Mr. Badley TV. But it's weird because you're back in an area where it has really been decimated, and they allow drug dealers to flourish. Remember back when they had the crack days? That it was like war on drugs, and all of a sudden now, oh no, they're victims. I'm like, really? Come on. I was born at night, just not last night.
And something that a lot of people may not know is, and I'm curious how this affects the bias in the reporting, because we in Seattle had people move from the Bay Area because they had their equipment stolen so many times or attacked. They were sick of working with security guards. Why they moved to Seattle, I don't know. It's not like it was a whole lot better. I mean, it just goes to show like how bad it must have been in San Francisco to think Seattle's a step up. But talk a little bit about that.
At that time, Seattle was a step up. I had been to Seattle.
Yeah.
I've been in numerous.
You're right.
times.
Seattle deteriorated over the last probably 8 years or so.
It did a deterioration at San Francisco. So as a lot of people left thinking I'm moving to greener pastures, they got there and they ended up coming into the same, the same idea, the same ideology, and the same amount of people passed out on the streets. So it's like you're leaving. Now let's go back to the car break-ins, because this is important. And I've been trying to express to people over and over and over again the importance of making sure that, that your equipment didn't get stolen. And people used to villainize me, if I'm using the right word, make me the villain because they thought I was shaming people because they left stuff in their car. But I was telling people, don't leave stuff in your car, because these crooks, it started off with the GPS. Remember those little things hanging in the window? It's very small. It's a little small GPS. I said, get rid of your GPS. All right. Then it was the remote controls in the car. And I said, get rid of your remote controls. Well, why? Oh, it's my remote control. Well, because people are breaking in the car, stealing the remote control, stealing your registration, and then going into your house and robbing your house. And
wow.
no one believed me when I told them this. I always say I'm always slept on. So no one believed me when I said, "Of course, you're just making that up. That's not true." But just recently it happened, and I talked to a cop who told me in Millbrae they had one where the guy broke in a car, stole the remote, stole the registration, went to the house, and did a home invasion because one of the guys was in the house in Millbrae. So this does happen, and now the they call them bippers, which is like a slang in the Bay Area for people breaking into cars by breaking the glass and stealing devices. But what they're doing is they're using devices now to go through, and that's how they cherry pick the cars they break into. Because if it was really just random, they would just break every car and then see what they get. But what they're doing is they're using devices to look for your Bluetooth signal. So let's say you put your iPad in your car and you leave it on, but it's not using it. It emits a Bluetooth signal. Your phone emits a Bluetooth signal. Any electronic device that has Bluetooth ultimately will emit a signal if it's powered up completely or even on sleep mode. So what they do is they drive by, they see it, and they know then they do a visual. You'll see them drive by, back up maybe to a car, do a visual. They look inside, and then they'll break the window and take everything out of it. Now, here is something that really caught my attention was not only do they do that, but they've gotten so brazen that they literally stand out in the street with a handgun in their hand because they know, number one, the commission out here, the police commission, pretty much cripple the police department.
Okay, what is the deal then? We keep hearing these press conferences where the lawmakers there are like, we gotta get on top of gun control because of school shootings. That's just all for
Okay.
show. Because they obviously, if that's true, that they don't care about guns.
I'm gonna tell you this about, and this is just my opinion. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a gun owner, and I support the Second Amendment as anybody because that's why we have the whole country was based on the Constitution. And if you throw away part of the Constitution, then you have to throw away all of it. You can't cherry pick what parts of the Constitution you want to keep, in my opinion. That's just my opinion before anybody goes in, well, you can do. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that they, right now, they want to impose an 11% sales tax on ammo, guns. And I'm like, the bad guys are going to be like, oh, I can't buy a gun now. It's 11% more tax. The bad guys aren't buying guns. The bad guys are the ones that are getting guns illegally. They are getting them. I mean, literally, you can drive to Nevada or Arizona and buy a gun and drive back over. Who's going to know? So you're putting up a facade saying that we're going to protect you because I'm your politician. That's my job. So we'll just create, more and more ways that people and the bad guys are going to get the guns. And at some point, all you're going to have is bad guys with guns and good people getting victimized, which is what took place in a lot of parts of San Francisco. I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah. So I'm getting a spam call while we're talking.
I get those all the time.
So annoying. I hate that my laptop is linked up to my phone.
No, I'll tell you something even more crazier. Yeah. So whenever I do my podcast, this is my phone, right? Uh-huh. Someone knows, and they have my number apparently, and we get a crank call, and they don't just crank call it because we make sure we put it on what do you call it, do not disturb. They call back twice to defeat the do not disturb. If you call do not disturb more than twice in a few seconds or a few minutes, it'll ring through.
Wow. Well, who do you think it is?
I have no idea. But I think they got too much time on their hands. How about that?
There are a lot of people with too much time on their hands.
I was
one of them. I got the 1-year-old down here saying, all right, Stanley, let's throw you a quick question from locals. I know, Jack. It was his birthday. He turned 1-year-old yesterday.
Yay. Happy birthday, Jack. I'll sing happy birthday to you while your mom, happy birthday to you. Oh, go ahead.
There you go. I got to pull up the other one.
Right.
Oh, no, here it is. Difficult for news crews to cover when their equipment keeps getting jacked. We kind of covered that one. Is there anything you wanted to add about that? Did you say how it affects the bias? Would you say most people are sort of tired of it?
Here's what creates it's a problem that hasn't been addressed. So a lot of underserved communities rely on the news media to come in and show the stories that matter. But if the crews are being jacked, there is no and a lot of stations hire security to protect the crews, but even that doesn't guarantee their safety. One of my people who worked for me with a bodyguard, when I worked the news, Kevin, he was shot and killed while they were covering a story in Oakland. So why would a crew want to go into parts of areas that are inherently dangerous? And I was on the safety committee when I worked in news. And one of the conversations I had was with a news general manager. And I said, one of the problems is that you guys are standing on TV announcing to the entire area that you're going to be live at this location for the next
Oh
5
yeah,
hours.
right.
And all that's doing is telling the bad guys, hey, there's a free camera, go get it. And he goes, oh, bad guys don't watch the news. I'm like, you know what? I can't believe you're running a whole station if you believe that. Because
That is really funny.
if you don't think that the bad guys are watching TV, then you're in the wrong business.
And what they do to thank you for that advice, Stanley? They came and gave you a bunch of copyright strikes.
Well, they didn't just do a copyright strike. They literally had someone call up YouTube and tell YouTube that I stole all the videos. And it wasn't even like, hey, can you appeal it? Because they literally wiped the page clean like it never existed. And there were no links for me to go back to appeal it. So and then the lawyer was charging me $700 an hour, $500 an hour. And it was just unsustainable. It just,
Isn't that amazing that somehow your station had like a direct red phone line to somebody at YouTube who had that power?
Well, yeah, and it sounds kind of creepy. I think he's making this up, but sources inside the station told me that two people, at that time was the news director and the manager for the web, and she says to him, "Hey, I got a friend at YouTube. I can make a phone call," and that was all it was.
Wow.
And that phone call, okay, let me make sure this is important. I want to say this.
Okay.
If somebody does something wrong in corporate, they send you a bunch of letters saying either cease and desist or, hey, here's a warning. You can't do this. You can't do that. Or we're disappointed in what you did and we want you to stop it from our official letterhead. Wouldn't that happen normally?
Yes.
Okay. So I never received any emails from anyone, no kind of communication whatsoever. Literally happened 72 hours after I left, they deleted my account. Now, you go, well, that's their product. They can do what they want to do with it. So let's go back to 2 years before that. You ready for this one? They served me with papers at that time. It was owned by News Media General. I was served papers to turn over the intellectual property to the station because they didn't own the rights to it. So if they don't own the rights to the property and they wanted me to sign over the intellectual property, then that tells you something that they didn't own it.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds like they wanted to do it in stealth mode because they knew they were doing something shady.
Right. And if how long have you been in TV business?
I started in 2003 at Fox News Channel, and then I went to seminary for 3 years and then got back in the business. So I think probably total like somewhere around 14 years, maybe 15 years.
So when you left the station, were you on air?
Yeah.
So you left the station. Did they, and you can yes or no only, so we can keep this compact. Did they keep you on their website for 3 years?
No. Yeah, that's really crazy when they kept your image there to keep.
They kept my videos and me on their website for 4 years until the news director who went after me got fired. The next day, it was taken down. And wait, it gets even better. When I came back to do stories from Arizona, people were like, "Oh, I just saw you on TV yesterday." I'm like, "I haven't been here in 3 years." They would have marathons for people behaving badly, marathons to dilute the work that I was doing when I came back. Can't make this up.
Yeah. You were a moneymaker for them.
Only person made money. I always had a joke. Everybody made money but me.
Right. Well, now that's why at least if we're poor, we're poor on our own, right? We're free.
Yeah,
we're free to be poor.
Yeah.
Okay, there was another question from Critical Thought. What does Stanley think are the root causes of San Francisco's decay, and what does he think San Francisco needs to repair it?
The root cause, from what I can tell, and I'll get flack for this, I don't care, I never care, is that bad political decisions made by politicians who are people in power, and then there was the homeless. What do you call it? There's a whole homeless. I can't think of the word. I keep trying to come up with it. Like
Initiative.
Complex. Where and I equate it to like a disease.
Homelessness industrial complex.
Homeless industrial complex. Thank you. So why treat why cure a disease when you make more money treating it? So people are making money hand over fist with this thing. And why would you want to get rid of that cash cow? If you're getting free milk, why would you want to go and buy a cow? My mom used to say that. Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free?
Right.
So
okay. So what is it? What do you think it needs then? If
it
that's
needs.
the problem.
Well, I mean, see, here's the bad part, and I don't do, and so we don't get too deep into politics. I typically stay away from politics because it's a quagmire. Once you get in it, you get stuck in it. But there needs to be some better decisions made, and I do see a change coming. There have been people on the forefront, people like who are trying to make changes. There are journalists out there that are showing the problems. There's citizen journalists out there showing the problems. There's people like Susan Dyer Reynolds. There's JJ Smith. I'm thinking of Biggie Smalls. He's been doing great work out there. But at the same time, guess what else they're doing? They're being attacked by these people who want things to stay as they are. And I'm always under attack. I mean, they literally tried to dox me. Random people, trolls come on and attack me. They attacked me for saying I wasn't even a San Francisco resident, but their bio says they just moved from Minnesota. You see the shock in my face? Like, wait, so I'm not a resident, but you just moved here and you're telling me that I'm not a resident. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to this one. When they stole his channel, did Stanley have the same feeling of powerlessness that we feel when we are burgled?
I
Robbed?
never felt so powerless in my life. And it wasn't, okay, let me make sure you understand this. It wasn't just that they deleted my account, but the news director who worked at the station called my station in Arizona multiple times in an attempt to get me fired. He was so vindictive that he went after me at my station. I know this because my news director at the time would drag me in the office and say, "Hey, look, I just got a call from from your news director at the old station, and they're saying that you're still using their videos." I'm like, I don't have time to use their videos. I'm still trying to learn your new. I'm making a whole new content here, But they were so adamant about trying to shut me down because remember now, I started that series as a photographer, so I was never under any actual contracts, ever under a contract with Kron. Even to the day I left. And as a matter of fact, my agent asked for them to give me a raise. And they told me that I had zero value to them. So there's no way I'm getting a raise. They didn't care about what I was going to do until the day I decided that I was going to go work in Arizona. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, what can we do to make it better? But it was at that point, what do? You've already asked and asked and asked. And at some point the boat is about to sink and you can't there's no way you can throw the water out anymore. Mm-hmm. So their vindictiveness was to target me for leaving.
Mm-hmm. Right. It may not have just been like a business decision. It was to send a message to you to stop.
It was to send a message to me that if you're not going to work for us for free, basically, because
we're going to just make life miserable for you. And
we are going to do everything we can to make sure you don't succeed.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's rough.
And it's rough because, there was so much misinformation put out about me that it was just like it was like trying to stomp out little tiny fires, and every time you stomp it out, you catch on fire.
Stanley.
Yes.
I just took a sip of my homemade kombucha and it went down the wrong pipe.
Are you drinking moonshine?
Kombucha. I guess it's kind of like it's like a morning version of moonshine. It's like
low alcohol.
Kombucha now. It's
kombucha.
Well, I drink out of this, a lot, and people think it's moonshine.
Moonshine.
When you describe it that way, why do you think people like us, either in the business or have left the business, why do you think there are so many people like us who are still so loyal to these corporations, even though they know this stuff is happening, and they even target like alternative media voices and stuff and say like we're the disinformation fake news group, and still like hold on to the brand even though they know this is how the brand treats us? Like what is that Stockholm syndrome? I mean, why can't they?
Well, because
be honest about that?
It's really, I'm not going to lie to you. Being out on my own is not the easiest thing to do. And it's a safety net for many people because you got health insurance, you got, and we get sheep-like mentality where we got to go in, I got to go in, I got to build the widgets, I got to make sure the widgets are working, I got to work overtime, I got to make sure the widgets are going so I can get a vacation. That's what people do now. And if you don't, so the minute you drop out, you get a letter from these people called Cobra. Oh yeah, you want health insurance? It's going to be $1,500. Wait, what? Yeah, $1,500. Wait, what? So not only do you not have a job with no income, they want you to pay extra money for not having a job with no income. Do you not see the stupidity in that right there? I mean,
I'm
seriously.
kind of sad that my mic was muted just now because when you said that, Jack goes, ah!
It's true. It's like a dinosaur roaring. He's like, yeah, I can feel your
The
anxiety. It's like you never
primal
really know what you don't have until you no longer have it.
scream.
And being on your own creates whole new challenges.
Yeah, yeah. It does, yeah. I mean, it's no risk it, no biscuit. Only in something that requires a risk will you get. I personally believe the reward. I mean, you were saying like when you were in the business, everybody was making the money, but so it's like it's one of those things. I mean, there's that line in the Zach Brown band song. There's no dollar sign on peace of mind. This I've come to know. And I feel like that has been my journey over the last few years is just, I mean, not to say that dealing with all the financial stuff that you've talked about hasn't been a challenge. It has been, and it's been a spiritual challenge to learn how to, just live day by day and trust God's provision. But that said, like, man, I'll tell you what, when I'm talking to people who my bosses would never in a million years have let me talk to.
Yeah.
I take that. That's a great value. And so I know what you mean. I guess maybe just the cause, since we're talking about it, people go check out Stanley's stuff and support Stanley if you can. He's working hard. Stanley, tell people where they can find you.
Well, if you're on Twitter, I'm at Stanley Roberts. You see the check mark, not the basketball player. Although Google has still had me mixed up with Stanley Roberts, the basketball player, whose net value is $16 million, and mine is like $16. Slight difference. um, also, I'm on. If you want to see all the links, go to Linktree, Mr. Badley TV, and you can find everything on Linktree. It's basically everything you want to do. If you go to Linktree, Mr. Badley TV, you'll find me. I'm also on Instagram at Mr. Badley TV on Instagram and Stanley Roberts TV on Instagram. So I'm all over the place. But if you go to MrBadley.com, there's also a bunch of links on the About Me page. So there's so much you can see. And it's and we also have a nonprofit now. I wanted to make sure we express that because I found out that there is a market for public service videos in the government sector. And it's great. And then someone asked the question, Bill Van Ram, I know him very well. Have you ever put someone on TV in some way regretted it? No. If you got on TV doing my thing, then you deserved it. I don't regret. I look at everybody, and just so you know, I would say 85% of the video I shoot never makes air because I want to be 100% sure that when I put you on there, I have you dead to rights. So there's no like, oh, maybe this, maybe that. No, if I got you, I got you.
Mm-hmm. Some positivity here for you, Stanley. Thank God for people like you telling the truth. The American labor system is a sham. COBRA is a nightmare. And on that track, tenure is a fake security claim. New York City schools got rid of tons of us tenured over not taking the shot. And the shots mandates are coming back, just so everybody knows. I just saw a doctor tweet that Providence healthcare system is now going to be requiring the most up-to-date shot. But anyway, Stanley, you're right. I mean, you start to figure out like the health insurance thing and all this stuff. It feels like it's all kind of, whether you want to say it's intentional or unintentional, but it's all kind of set up to keep us working for big corporations.
Yes.
Because, it's so difficult to go out on your own. Not to say that it's impossible. It's not impossible. I mean, here we are making it work, but it's just a lot easier financially, for a lot of reasons that don't necessarily need to be there. Like the health insurance thing, to me, though, I will say we have Christian healthcare ministries, and I think they are reasonably priced compared to what I was paying with my last job. And they do pay 100% over, like, once you hit a $500 bill, for a particular like health event, they pay everything. Like they paid everything related to maternity care and our son's birth this last year. And I probably would have had a bill of some kind from the hospital if I had insurance. So, I mean, there are options out there, but it's just, it's just.
Even you. Can you hear me?
Your volume got really low all of a sudden.
Yeah, I was getting a buzz in my ear, so I did something to try to take the buzz out, but it took out the audio too. So, So
Wait, is this true? Homeless people living on Ocean Beach in tents order pizza delivery, their beach tent address?
you know what? Now that Domino's has that new pinpoint delivery,
Uh-huh.
you can order pizza anywhere. So
Dude,
apparently,
that
you
is
can. So it's
crazy.
funny you mentioned that because remember back during the was it the I think it was the OJ trial or one of those trials where they had Brenda Moran, I think her name was. She was one of the jurors. And we went to her house and we were camped out outside, and we had no way of getting food. So we tried to call up and order pizza on the phone, and they're like, we need an address. We didn't have an address. So we gave them her address, and they showed up, and then we brought the food. Because in the field, we can't get food. So it was like, how do we do it? Now you can do pinpoint and get on the beach, even with I saw a guy the other day with a phone more expensive than mine, and he was homeless. I'm like, how does that work? And I'm not sure, but I think we may have lost her because I don't see her
No,
anymore.
I'm here.
All
I'm
right.
back. It took a second.
I was trying to make sure I was about to become you for a second. AI.
Yeah, you can always do that. You can always
All right.
do that. All right, Stanley, let me just tell everybody about the conference I'm trying to go to. In case you didn't know, or maybe you just you did hear this, sit through it for me for a second. The Wise Traditions Conference is coming up in a month. It's in Kansas City, Missouri. It is like the radical foodie conference to end all foodie conferences. All kinds of people like Dr. Tom Cowan, Naomi Wolf, Catherine Austin Fitz. What are their names? Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. They've got this huge YouTube channel about off grid homesteading and everything. They're all going to be there. Green Pasture, Green Pasture, my cod liver oil and vitamin D butter oil sponsor. They got me a press pass and they're paying for hotel. I just got to get myself there. If you want the whole family to come, including this guy, if you want the whole family to come with Lynn as technical director, we're going to raise some money and see if we can get there. Otherwise, it'll just be me doing interviews. But we're going to bring you some great content, live content. You want to support the travel budget, you can go to, let me just pull it up. GiveSendGo.com/Allison to Wise Traditions. Allison with one L, number 2, Wise Traditions. GiveSendGo to Allison, /Allison to Wise Traditions. Thanks to everybody who's already given to support the trip. It should be a really good conference. I'm really excited about it. And so is Jack. Okay, Stanley, final words on the topic before we go.
So can you still hear me? Because I turned up everything.
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, good. Because I got rid of the buzz. Go ahead.
Any final words, whatever you want to say about anything.
Well, I can tell you this, that yes, they did put lipstick on a pig when they cleaned up around, because if you go outside of that, around Moscone Center, it was very clean. But it was interesting enough that I sat in on I sat on when the governor, Newsom, so I was talking to Mark Benioff, and Gavin said you could eat off the sidewalk. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't go that far. So, yes, for that moment. And remember, a lot of it's just, if you tell someone that something that way and they're not there, they believe it. But if you're there, and I took a guy who flew in from, he was here from, I think, another state, and we took him to his hotel, and we took him through the Tenderloin. And you see people like one lady like living in a pile of trash. She literally was living in a pile of trash. I'm not making this up. She was sitting on the sidewalk, and there was a pile of trash about a foot high, and she was living inside of it. You can see her head sticking up. That is not sustainable for any place in the world. So, don't believe everything you see. The whole city is not terrible, but then the whole city is not great either, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that's how I talked about Seattle during that whole Chaz Chop debacle, because it was getting reported either on one hand, like there was nothing wrong, it was just the summer of love, everything was great. Or you would see like Sean Hannity saying like the entire city was going up, in an insurrection. And the truth was neither was the case. The vast majority of people in Seattle never saw the Chaz Chop unless they went to go see it because it was in Capitol Hill, and Capitol Hill's like, it's not, you don't even have to go through it to go to downtown. So you could just, take the highway. So a lot of people wouldn't even go there unless they were like going out at night or they live there or something. It's not, it's more of like a touristy, it's kind of like, what's the gay district in San Francisco?
The Castro.
It's like the same thing. It's the Castro for Seattle. And so, rainbow crosswalks and whatnot and gay bars and stuff like that. And it's a party area. So a lot of people would never have even crossed into that. On the other hand, it wasn't just a summer of love. It was a literal takeover of a neighborhood. And so it should have been taken seriously too. So yeah, it's hard to know sometimes when you're not, you're not there. But I actually went. I drove by the Chaz shop because I wanted to see it for myself. And, I mean, honestly, I would not have liked to have lived there. If I was living in Capitol Hill, that would have been a terrible situation. Like, or if I had to work there, but where I used to live, it would never have had any effect on my life.
I am more concerned about the people who live there and see this every day. And I'm not the kind of person that says, what about the children? What about the children? It's everybody. Everyone's affected one way or another. And if you're too scared to come out your house, then that's not a good neighborhood to live in. If you can't come out your own house and you're worried about tripping over a dead person or someone's, and it can happen, or someone smoking. The first time I ever walked through with my daughter, she was 5 years old. And we were going to the movies when I worked at Cron on 1001 Van Ness. And the biggest problem we had was I had to cover her eyes. And this was back in, she was born in 2003. So probably around, 2010, 2011. We walk into the movies and I decided to walk to downtown from where we were. And the biggest problem we saw was a bunch of people's penises hanging out. And I was like, okay, I can cover her eyes. But now it's like, how do you fix that? It's past the whole penis hanging out part and the poop on the sidewalk. Now it's just people dropping dead from using fentanyl and drugs that are laced with fentanyl. And it's funny that I can't get a Vicodin for knee pain, but I go in the corner and get a whole bunch of fentanyl, which is a synthetic painkiller.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think that kind of shows the side of the same hypocrisy that we were talking about at the beginning, which is like, well, you talked about the guns, how like people can just have guns. And then if you're a gun owner, you gotta, you can't buy ammo or whatever. Okay, it's Jack's birthday. So I forgot to put this on his birthday party. He hates it.
I don't think he wants the hat on.
He hates it. He does not want it.
He said, I don't want that. So we're going to, let me just hold it. There we go.
He doesn't want it. All right, Stanley. It's always great to have you. Thanks so much. Don't forget, everybody, go check out Stanley Roberts on the interwebs at all those different sites. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for everybody for the support. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.